we're going to talk about lower back pain, which I know a lot about because anyone probably watching this video, if you know me, knows I have suffered for about 8 years in chronic pain with my lower back. My L5 disc popped out when I was about 18. The disc dehydrated, and I was in chronic pain until I actually started training properly, okay? And I've learned a few tips and tricks throughout the years off various people I've spent time with, coaches, chiropractors, etc. And I come up with a little routine that I do when my back gets bad. And anyone who does this, who I've shown, when they do it, it really does help ease it off. The first thing you got to understand is when lower back pain triggers, it's normally something to do with the front of their hips. Because what I want to explain to you is your pelvis will tilt forward and backwards. So I hope you can see this on the video. Okay, so you've got two elastic bands attached to your hips called your hip flexors. I won't go into the exact names of all the parts of the hip flexors, but let's just call them hip flexors. And imagine there are two elastic bands that attach kind of in here and pull down. So imagine if these elastic bands are tight, they're going to be pushing the hips forward, which then tilts the hips this way, thus creating quite a lot of pressure in the lower back. It also starts to seize up the lower back. So you may think that the back is very stiff, so you will try and stretch your, you like literally can't do this, you're like, can't move. So your back sees. It doesn't matter how much you stretch your hamstrings, this is going to make no difference to the tilting of the hip because this is what's holding on for dear life, not these. Yeah? This is a big mistake that I made for years. I stretched my hamstrings sometimes for hours a day because my lower back was so tight. It made zero difference. And there's actually a good book called Your Hamstrings Aren't Tight. I can't remember who it's by. He's a very famous chiropractor in the UK. I can't remember the top of my head. I've got him on Facebook as a friend anyway. So, hip flexors. First, I would like to do some mobility on them and warm them up. Okay, there's a few different things you can do. So I'm going to move this bench out of the way. I like to do just some light bodyweight squats, and I'll probably hold on to something if it is stiff, just to get the actual hip capsule moving. So I would turn with your heels under your hips, toes out 45 degrees, and just sit down into it. Have a little bit of a bounce at the bottom, but very, very gentle, okay? So just try and move a little bit like this. I will probably do about 15 to 20 of these until you start to feel the hips are warming. You're not trying to tire yourself out or build the lactic acid up in the muscle. All I'm trying to do is warm the hips up. Then what I will probably do is take a wider stance, in a sumo stance, so wide with toes out 45 degrees. And again, just sit down into it and come back up again. Just nice and gentle. You're not trying to like tie your legs out. All you literally are doing is trying to move your hip capsule, okay? So I would do this, and I would maybe retest your toe touch, okay? So in between this, I should have done this at the beginning. Slight bend in the knee, and just see how far you can go down. Obviously, I'm quite loose today, but I've done this video once before, and I was only like here. By the end of the video, I was actually touching my toes. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is start to stretch the hip flexors. I'm going to try and show you with the camera angle as much best as I can. Find a solid surface, like a door or a wall, something like that. You want to put your toe against it. I'm going to try and show you against here. And then your knee against it, okay? So your toe and your knee touch the flat surface. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a door or whatever. Then what you want to try and do is the back foot stays on the ball of the foot. The heel, if it can, turn out slightly. And from this position, you want to push away from the whatever you've got your knee against. You want to try and feel it in the hip. If you don't, it's because maybe you're dropping your knee, so you want to try and keep the back leg straight. Push away and try and take some nice deep breaths. With all the stretches I'm going to show you, 15 seconds for 4 sets on each side. So I would do that for 15 seconds on left and then 15 seconds on the right for 4 sets, okay? So you want to feel the stretch. It'll feel like in the groin area from the hip into the groin. That's where you'll, what's the word? Predominantly feel it. That's the word I was looking for. I was trying to begin it with an M, there is no such word. So you'll feel it in that area there, which is a good thing, okay? I would then retest. So you've done your 4 sets of 15 seconds, then retest, touch your legs, okay? The next thing I would do is releasing the lower back, because you've just released the hips. We're going to do an extra one on the hips in a second, but you can also release the lower back. The way you do it is you want to put your fingertips into your lower back like this, and as you lean forward, you're going to lean forward and literally scrape your fingertips up your back. So if you can see sideways on, just so you can see what I'm actually doing on my back, I would start my fingertips at the bottom. I'm either side of the spine. I'm not on the spine, I'm either side of the spine. I would lean forward and scrape, it's nice, up my back. I would do it again. Okay, so think about it like this. The spine's straight, come up the side of the spine, and then trying to go out around the bottom of the low back. So your rectus spinae muscle, it's kind of like a diamondish shape. You want to try and release that basically. So I would start from here, scrape up, and then I would scrape from here around this area, but you don't have to go as high, okay? You don't have to go to your rib cage. So scrape all the way up the spine and then out to the side around the erector spinae. You'll normally feel where it's right, and after that you've technically released your lower back, okay? So hopefully if the hips work, the lower back's now been fascia released, this will give you a nice bit of movement in the hips. This next thing I'm going to show you is quite advanced. If you haven't got control of your core, don't do this, and you do this at your own risk. But it's one of the things that I find most effective when my hip flexors go. So you want to find a bit of space on the floor. Hopefully you can see this, by the way. You want to take one leg up in the air, bring the hips down as low as you can until you feel a stretch. So you are compressing your lower back a little bit, but you're actually stretching your hips, and then push up with your left leg, whichever leg's touching the floor. So what you're trying to do is stretch the hip flexor, and then fire it. Okay? So you stretch. It's kind of like an active release technique. But you're trying to stretch it and then activate it, stretch it, activate it. And sometimes it just wakes the muscle up, because if you've been sat down, that muscle is asleep. Yeah, it doesn't know what it's doing. So you're trying to stretch the hip, so as if I was doing so, I would stretch, and then I would push my foot through the floor, as if I'm trying to kick a football through the floor, and that would push my hips back up in the air, okay? That I find very effective, but again, if you haven't got control of your core, if you can't hold your body weight up in kind of this position, don't do it, because you'll probably hurt yourself, okay? After that, I would just generally do some mobility. I like to call these kind of like monkey movements. So come into a squat position, but put your hands on the floor, you lift your heels up, and just rotate your hips kind of left and right like this. And what you might find is, you might get a few clicks, a few clunks, just go with it. All you're trying to do is just get the fluid moving around the hips, the fluid moving around the joints, and generally just warm up your body, okay? I find literally doing that will give you the biggest bang for your buck on any lower back pain in my experience, okay? Depending on what the issue is with your lower back pain, there could be more things you could do, but if you did that every day, and once you've done that, I would start working on bodyweight squats. So if you do suffer from any type of back issue, building up your strength from the squat is going to be your best friend, okay? And obviously if you're watching this video, you may already train with squats already. But bodyweight squats is a great place to start. So now I literally just do some nice strong bodyweight, trying to keep my chest up, and just start building from them, but daily. And then start to add a little bit of weight if you can daily, if you've got like a barbell at home or something like that. But they will be your best friend. The way I built mine back up was from doing squats. Started off with bodyweight, started adding weights and doing squats daily. And I can honestly say now, it saved my sanity learning this, and squatting saved my sanity with lower back pain. So I hope that helps, alleviate your lower back pain and work on it. But this isn't something you do once, this is something you can literally do every day. Okay, you could do this every day, especially if you sit down a lot. I would definitely do this every day. I do this every day. I do this multiple times a day if I'm sat down. It takes literally 5 minutes to do. And you'll feel a hell of a lot better as well. Not just physically, but mentally. There's a lot of research showing that when lower back pain goes, it affects certain things in your brain. It sounds a bit mental, but it does, and it can put your mood down. Yeah. So if you want to be happy, go and do that.